That was Chainsaw Man. A world of devils and devil hunters, where guts are spilled and deals are made. It's now had its first anime adaptation, and I have to say, I liked it a lot. But much like making a deal with a devil, the conversion from manga to anime seems to have had some unexpected or unintended consequences. Now don't get me wrong, the anime adaptation was good, but something felt a little off about it. Something almost intangible was lost in the translation, and some scenes and imagery just didn't hit the same way as they did in the manga. It's as if its creator made a deal with the anime devil himself to get it made, and in the process, well, we've had to give up some of the original charm that made the manga so special in the first place.
NANI?!
So let's delve into the devilish world of Chainsaw Man, and see how the adaptation compares to the original source material. After reading the first volume of the manga, and browsing a ton of later panels, I felt I had a bit of an idea of what Chainsaw Man was all about. Well, I was impressed. The art style and storytelling came off as rough and raw. It had soul. It oozed personality and individuality. There was a bunch of things in there that really made me go, wow, that's cool. Or I've never seen that before, or that's really clever. It all screamed one thing: visual storytelling. Here's my rough thought process when I'm reading this type of thing. This naturally made me curious about the author, so I looked him up. Tatsuki Fujimoto.
今から浮きます。
Yeah, I'm sold. This guy's an absolute legend. I also found out he loves Hollywood movies too, which made a lot of sense in hindsight. I mean, just have a look at that video I just showed you. He's tilted the camera upwards. It's a low angle. He's expecting to levitate for real, and so he's positioned the camera and lens as such. Now, I'm not saying he's the next Roger Deakins, but these cinematic sensibilities are definitely reflected in his art as well. I then looked up some of his other work. I've never heard of any of them, but the synopsis I read really piqued my interest. Look Back, Goodbye Eri, and yes, Fire Punch. Damn, what a batshit insane premise. A dark fantasy that takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, where a boy named Agni, who has the power to regenerate his body, is feeding parts of himself to the people of his village to keep them alive. After being burned by an unquenchable flame for over 8 years, he learns to endure the pain and sets out on a quest to find out who cursed him with his regeneration ability. Plus he's in love with his sister. I was thinking that Fujimoto-san was not right in the head, but in the best way possible. In a nutshell, it made me really look forward to the anime. I wouldn't say I was a fan or I was super hyped or anything though, but one thing I knew was that I wanted to go in blind in terms of the rest of the story. So I avoided looking at any of that, all the way up until the show aired. The day finally came and I watched episode 1, but it was not what I was expecting. The production value was polished and high. This thing played out like a Hollywood film. Absolutely gorgeous. The action was intense and visceral. I could see those panels from before with their full motion, full HD glory on display.
It's very nice.
Having worked in production before, I know it can be a grind, but what I can tell is that a ton of people passionately worked hard on this anime to make it what it was, and that made me feel good about what I'd just seen. We open with Denji waking up inside a dilapidated shack, with his pet devil, Pochita, a small dog with a chainsaw mounted in its skull, who is sleeping soundly beside him. Denji heads to his job like any other day, and we learn that he's in extreme debt, working tirelessly to fulfill his obligations. He's sold a kidney, his right eye, and a nut. We find out that his debt is insurmountable, and it's unlikely he'll pay it all off before he dies, so he's taken some risky and drastic measures to earn more money. Denji works as a devil hunter. After killing the Tomato Devil, we find out that his debt is to the Yakuza, and he's been selling his kills to them on the black market. With said debt being a life or death matter, all of Denji's money goes towards it. Denji is living on the bones of his ass. He barely has enough money to share a slice of bread with Pochita for his dinner. Normal is a distant dream for Denji. It's something for other people to have. It's simply not the world that he's living in. He'll never have a girlfriend, go on a date, or even have the simple pleasure of jam on his bread. Denji discusses with his only friend that if he could have one dream come true, it would be to score with a girl before he dies. Denji makes his feelings pretty clear on the matter later on in the series.
こと見下しやがってよ。復讐だの、家族守りたいだの、猫救うだの、ああだのこうだの、みんな偉い夢持ってていいな。じゃあ夢バトルしようぜ、夢バトル。俺がてめえをぶっ殺したらよ、てめえの夢船もむこといかな。
Now this may seem trivial and silly to some, but I think it's a beautiful stroke of writing. It's such a simple and honest dream for a young man in his situation to have. It kind of lights a fire in your belly. You really want to see this guy succeed. We enter a flashback. We learn that a young Denji's father has hung himself, leaving only one day for him to come up with 700,000 yen, or else the Yakuza will chop him up and sell the bits. Completely overwhelmed and facing his own mortality, Denji falls to his knees, ready to give up. It's at this point he encounters a mortally wounded Pochita. With both of them at death's door, Denji lays it all out for the two of them.
俺の血はただじゃねえ。これは契約だ。お前を助けてやるから。俺を助けろ。
What did we just witness here? Well, it was Denji's first deal with the devil. The idea of making a deal with the devil at a crossroads has been a popular myth for centuries, with many different cultural variations. According to the legend, a person seeking wealth, fame, or musical talent could make a deal with the devil by meeting him at a crossroads, typically at midnight. In exchange for the person's soul, the devil would grant their wish. The most well-known version of the myth comes from African American folklore in the southern US, particularly in the Mississippi Delta region. This legend became popularized in the early 20th century through blues music, which often featured lyrics about making deals with the devil at a crossroads. The most famous of these songs is Crossroad Blues by Robert Johnson, a blues musician who died at a young age, adding to the legend that he'd made a deal with the devil in exchange for his musical talent. While the origin of the Crossroads legend is unclear, it's become a well-known part of American folklore, thanks in part to the influence of blues music and the enduring appeal of the Faustian bargain. Now, what is a Faustian bargain? Well, it's a story trope based on the tale of Faust. It's a tale of a man who sold his soul to the devil for knowledge and power. It's captured the imagination of readers for centuries. In a nutshell, Chainsaw Man is a unique and modern exploration of this story.
What's wrong? What is this? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it decent? What's wrong? Was it good? What's wrong? What is this?
After watching the first episode, something wasn't right. I lay in bed trying to figure out what wasn't sitting well. I mean, what's the big issue? I was watching a good adaptation of Chainsaw Man, wasn't I? It was polished and professional, cinematically beautiful, clean and well produced. It had crossed its T's and dotted its I's. Then it dawned on me. I was watching an adaptation of Chainsaw Man, a show about making deals with devils. And this was a fundamental problem for me. I was watching the visual equivalent of Taylor Swift when I was expecting Robert Johnson. Basically, I was given pop music when I was expecting the blues. I felt that by watching this show, I was doing a deal with the anime devil himself. I wanted to watch something that had a bit of grit to it. Basically, I wanted it to be a bit shit. I wanted sketchy line art. I wanted the crazy neon colour palette. I wanted the ugly, visceral and raw detail I saw in those panels. I wanted Fujimoto-san's style.
好きな牛乳メグミルク好きな生クリーム生クリーム好きな
Now, I don't hold on to the idea that I'm correct in any way about all of this. I'm simply saying that the media I'd consumed before watching the anime had given me a set of expectations, and I wanted the spirit of the anime to align more closely with the source material that set those expectations. Now, I also have no idea what happened behind the scenes, and it's unclear exactly how much creative control Fujimoto-san had in its production. From what I could find, there was a single tweet from the manga's editor saying that he was heavily involved, and a transcribed interview where Fujimoto-san stated, "I'm not familiar with animation, I'll leave it to the professionals." The vast majority of this type of stuff is kept under wraps, and is often governed by NDAs in my personal experience. It's just PR talk, so always take any information such as this with a grain of salt. So how is Fujimoto-san involved with any of this? Does it mean he approved of everything? Does that mean he has to like what's being done with his creation? What if he did like what was being done? I have no answers for any of these questions at all. Much like any deal with the devil, I'm not saying that the result was either intentional or unintentional, nor can I speak to any of Fujimoto-san's motivations on the matter either. Well, I got what I wanted. A Chainsaw Man anime. But creating one is a complex process. It involves many different individuals and factors. While an author can have significant creative input, there are also other considerations that can come into play, such as fiduciary risk. It can lead to executive interference, with the higher-ups making changes that want to appeal to a wider audience to increase profits. It often results in the original vision being slowly shaved away until what remains is only an approximation of the original work. Some ones that come to mind are Fullmetal Alchemist, Soul Eater, and Berserk. While watching the anime adaptation of Fujimoto-san's work, I realised my discomfort wasn't about any bargain he'd made, but rather it was my own feelings. I felt like I was making a Faustian bargain by trading the source material's depth and complexity for pretty visuals, detailed animation, and a truncated storyline. However, we have to acknowledge that some changes are inevitable when a work is adapted, and it's important to recognise that this is a necessary evil at the end of the day. Despite all these changes, I still enjoyed the anime for what it was, and I appreciate it as a good piece of media in its own right. Life's too short to not enjoy things for what they are. I suppose my point is, don't forget we're blessed to be in a position to enjoy such things in the first place, because some people aren't so lucky. So if watching this anime means you're making friends with the devil, then so be it. Otherwise you risk finding yourself all alone in life, with the only devils left to face being those that exist within yourself.
俺の力使ってで悪魔を殺すとよ、すっげえ痛そうなんだわ。だから、楽に殺してやりたくて。
お前は悪魔と仲良しにでもなりたいのか？
友達になれる悪魔がいたらなりてえよ。俺友達いねえもん。
その言葉覚えとくぜ。